When we talk about these subjects, all the time people say, Del, you're just a journalist. What do you know about medicine? Well, I know that, Heidi Larson, the head of the WHO, the head sort of psychologist for the WHO, stood before the WHO and said one of the biggest problems we have with doctors that have got to interact with parents that are questioning vaccines or people questioning vaccines is that they themselves don't really have the answers. Why? This is, a pretty close quote. She said, because as we all know, doctors are lucky if they get a half a day education on vaccines. That's her, Heidi Larson. That is her quote. You can get it. It's close enough. They're lucky if they get a half a day education. Guys like Bob Sears and Dr. Bob Zajac have all told you this from their own, and Dr. Paul Thomas, all of these pediatricians have spoken out, say, I wasn't taught about vaccinations. Well, what happens when the first front line, the first people to receive vaccinations are that front line that we all trusted knew better, that knew the studies, knew what was going on, and they get lined up and they march in nobly, really nobly, to get the vaccine, to say, hey, world, follow me. I'm going to stand in my truth here. I'm going to get vaccinated. And they do it. And then something horrible happens. They are so badly injured, they cannot work. They can't do the work they love. They can't treat people anymore. They can barely treat themselves or take care of themselves, and people are having to come in and help them. That is essentially the story of three brave ladies that sat down with me last week. Grab your tissues, get ready. You're about to get pounded with the real truth about the COVID-19 vaccines. It's my honor and pleasure today to be joined by three very brave women that are coming forward to talk about the injury that took place after receiving COVID-19 vaccines. These three women were all pro-vaccine, were one of the first to receive it. So I think that this conversation is not an easy one to have, but it is an honor to have you here. So Sean, Christy, and Angelia, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I think the most logical place for me to start this conversation really is with you, Sean, because it was your video, was the first video that I saw of someone really posted on Facebook having issues with the COVID-19 vaccine. So let's just take a look at what that video was that we saw online.
My name is Sean Skelton, and I'm very real. And unfortunately, this is also very real. I didn't know what else to do other than to just come on live and show everybody what my body is going through at all wakening hours of my day. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody online and my friends and family that have reached out and prayed, because I think that's the only thing we have going for us right now is a prayer.
When you posted that video, let's just start from the beginning. First of all, which vaccine did you get, and why did you, how were you so early in the lineup?
I'm a CNA, have been for 25 years. I, on January the 4th, was very pressured by my employer to get the vaccine. So I went ahead and I got it on January the 4th. On January the 5th, I just had mild flu-like symptoms, arm pain, and went to work. By the end of the day, my legs hurt so bad, my body hurt so bad, I couldn't stand it. The next day I woke up, my tongue was spazzing, and it just went on from there. The next day I was in full body convulsions and stayed that way for 13 days. And then the video that you just watched first was after my convulsions. That's what my every waking hour was like. As someone almost with Huntington's disease.
And as a CNA, what type of work do you do?
Patient care at Good Samaritan Nursing Home in Oakland City, where I live.
And which vaccine did you receive?
The Moderna, the first shot. And it was within 2 days that I was convulsing.
When the convulsion started, how quickly did you reach out to, so what was the plan? Did you go right to the doctor that gave you the vaccine, or what? How did you?
So they brought in CVS Pharmacy, and a pharmacist gave us the vaccine. The next day, or the 2 days after, when my tongue started spasming, I reached out to my DON first, and she said, you need to go to the emergency room. Then I reached out to my primary care doctor and said, hey, my tongue is spasming at resting state. It has literally rubbed it raw from my teeth. He recommended that I go on steroids immediately. He put me on steroids, Benadryl, and Pepsid. And then, like I said, the next day I woke up in full body convulsions. And we called the primary care doctor while I was on the phone. He said, you need to call an ambulance. We called an ambulance right away. They took me to Deaconess Gateway in Evansville, where the doctor there just told me I was clearly having a panic attack and needed to settle down. So my husband loaded me up and took me to another hospital, St. Vincent in Evansville, Indiana, where the doctor there said this is clearly a vaccine injury. Do not take the second dose.
So that was the first time you really heard that?
That is the first and only time that I have heard that.
Everyone else, what did they think they were treating?
Psychogenic movement disorder.
That was just spontaneously appeared?
Yeah, I must have stressed out about the shot, and this is why this has happened. This is what every other doctor says to me. PTSD, panic attack, anxiety, stress. And when I finally did get admitted to the neurology department at Gateway, which was after I had visited 5 emergency rooms, we had traveled all the way down to Nashville to Vanderbilt. Finally, then the following Monday, I went to my primary care doctor and made him look at me. And he had me admitted into the neurology department at Deaconess Gateway. And before I was even seen by a neurologist, I was seen by a psychologist. They had psych in there to evaluate me first.
I was under the impression that maybe you were the only one out there, Sean, and then this video pops up online, and Angelia, I saw your video trying to walk down a hallway.
Hope you're going to be okay.
Obviously, it's tragic to see one person, but when 2 people now appear to be having very similar symptoms for all of us here at the High Wire, now it becomes scary. Now there seems to be some sort of pattern. Tell me about your story.
I work in the healthcare. I manage the surgery center, and my parents are not in the best of health, especially my mom. Being exposed to COVID as often as I was, I did not want to be the one to give my mother COVID and possibly it not turn out good. But I took my lunch break on January the 5th, and I drove myself to get my first injection. I took the Pfizer. Within 2 hours, I started having a severe headache, but I knew that that was one of the side effects, so I didn't think that much of it. Wednesday, I slept for about 15 hours after I got home from work. I was just really tired. Thursday morning, I woke up and I felt really dizzy, almost passed out. But I never took off from work. I just took me some ibuprofen. I gathered myself up and I went on to work. About 11:30 Friday night, I got out of the bed and I couldn't feel or use my left leg. I didn't know what was going on. I said, okay, well, I guess this is going to pass. I was just in shock. I went back to bed. I told my husband something's going on with my leg. And then Saturday morning, I got up and I could not use either of my legs. And it eventually followed by full body convulsions about 2 hours later. My husband took me to the ER. And from there, I was transported over to the hospital. And as soon as I got into my room, physician come in, a hospitalist, and he said, Ms. Tassell, I heard you were coming. I know what's going on. I know this is the vaccine, and we are going to do research until we figure it out. I never saw that doctor again. He never came back into my room. I was at Ochsner Hospital for 5 days, and I never got any treatment for convulsions. They studied my spine. They never did an EEG to see if I was having seizures. At one point, they could hear my legs shaking from the nurse's station. My insurance company denied the whole authorization, the whole hospital bill, because the only thing they submitted was leg weakness. So
The hospital submitted leg weakness as what
yes,
they were
the diagnosis.
seeing.
Yes, yes. Then I followed up with neurology. I had all kinds of tests and lab run. And I have literally been shuffled from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor. And here I am today, still having the same issues that I had in that video. That is very hard to watch.
Did you immediately, when you started losing feeling in one of your legs, did you immediately think this is a reaction to the vaccine?
I did not at first. I didn't know. I do have some back problems. I thought maybe that it was finally one of those discs had made it through my spine. That's why I was reaching out, and to my physicians. I had no idea what was going on. But then when the convulsions started, I knew it had to be from the vaccine. I was a normal 45-year-old healthy person, didn't take any routine meds on a daily basis. I never in a million years thought I would be like this today. It's crazy what I've been through.
So Christy, were you aware of, these stories that were out there at the time that you decided to get a vaccine?
I was not.
So we have video of what you went through.
Now, if you guys think this is normal, you tell me. Breathe, honey. Breathe. Look at her toes cramping up. Going into convulsions. Honey. Stop. Breathe. Breathe.
Christy, looking at that video, having these convulsions, is that hard to watch? It looks very painful. Is that your husband we're hearing in the background saying, breathe, try to relax? What is the feeling going on inside of your body as we're seeing that?
With the convulsions that I was having, every muscle in my body would tense up and just continuously spasm. I would feel like I couldn't breathe, like I couldn't catch my breath. I would stutter. I couldn't speak more than 1 or 2 words during the convulsions. It was scary. Scary.
And so how did this all start for you?
So I was a clinical manager with a home health agency, and I actually took the vaccine to try to encourage my clinicians that it was safe and to encourage them to take the vaccine also. I took the vaccine on January 19th. 2 days later, I was in the ER with throat and mouth swelling and received Benadryl, steroids, and Tylenol, and was told to take that every 4 hours until the symptoms resolved. I took around the clock Tylenol and Benadryl and prednisone for 5 days and actually returned to work the following Tuesday. Worked a full day, Was very fatigued, tired. I figured it was just part of the normal symptoms. And then that night, after a long day at work, I came home and took a shower and sat down on the bed to go to bed. And I looked at my husband and said, something is not right. So I don't know what, but something's not right. And immediately my hands and my feet and my legs all just, I pulled up into a fetal position and just started convulsing. At the ER, I was told that I was having a panic attack and discharged me. I have since seen a neurologist twice, and I was waiting on a referral to a large university hospital. I've had 6 ER visits. There was one day where I had 16 back-to-back convulsions, just like the one that you just saw in the video. And I was actually flown out by helicopter to a hospital for treatment. I was there, I think 1 or 2 days. I can't really remember. I had a lot of memory loss during that time. But that was where I saw neurology, and they gave me a conversion disorder diagnosis. And then it's just been a long road from there.
Have either of you been diagnosed with this functional neurological conversion disorder? Is that what all 3 of you have been told
Yes.
that
Yes.
it is? What is the definition of that? What does that mean?
Well, one doctor told me it's a diagnosis of, I don't know what's wrong with you, so we're going to blame you. Basically, the doctors just have no idea. They don't know how to treat a vaccine adverse reaction from the mRNA. And I feel like they're too scared. I don't have any other explanation as to why no doctor will help us.
I actually had a neurologist send me and my primary care an email and completely denied the referral for me to see him. He was a movement disorder specialist, which I felt like I needed. My primary care said it looked like I had advanced Parkinson. And he emailed us back and said, my office is very complex and I will not be able to see you at this time.
Did he meet you in person, or was that just before?
That was by email only. I had never met this doctor. I guess he had probably heard of my name on social media and did not want to get involved. I'm not sure, but we can't find a lot of medical treatment out there for us.
So do you believe because the vaccine is attached to your description of this, that it is changing or affecting whether people will see you or treat you?
I have actually went
Yes.
to see neurologists and did not even mention the vaccine because I did not want them to turn me away. And it's in my medical record. I mean, everything is electronic now. And once he started looking, he came back in and he said, so you took the vaccine? And I said, yes, sir, I did. But I did not want to give you that information because I need help. And I felt like maybe if that word was not involved, I could have gotten the help I needed. And now I'm actually being treated for migraines.
Migraines.
Yes,
Okay.
migraines.
One of the side effects to this is severe headache.
Yeah.
Severe headaches, your ears ring very badly, and that usually happens before a convulsion.
So Christy, you obviously believe in vaccines. This is, is it safe to say that's true for all of you, that you're all pro-vaccine? Is it hard to accept that this may be the vaccine that's causing it?
I don't think it's hard. I think we're in uncharted, as a healthcare industry, we're in an uncharted area. We're in uncharted waters. We don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know what the side effects may be. And the more that people such as us 3 speak out and tell about what we're feeling and what we're going through, then the more research that can be done on it and the more help that others can receive. And I think we can all 3 agree that the
Absolutely.
biggest reason that we all agreed to come here is because we want people to know they're not alone. We
Right.
want people to know that there are people that will help. There are people that are emotionally invested in us. And I know these Sean and Angelia had a lot of backlash from doctors. I, on the other hand, my primary care physician's office embraced me. They've been very supportive. They've been very helpful. They just would look at me and say, I don't know what to do. 2 weeks ago, I had a follow-up appointment with my primary, and I went into a full convulsion in her office, and she literally looked at my husband and said, I don't know what to do. What do I do? As my husband was telling me to breathe, to get through it, hang on, it's not going to be a long one. So I don't really think that it's a fear of the vaccine from doctors. I think they're just in uncharted waters. And, coming from a healthcare position, I completely understand that. Do I think it's okay and that it's right for all of us to sit over here without treatment or without a proper diagnosis? Absolutely not. But I also, as a healthcare worker, understand that we don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know where we're going from here. And if we can find people that are willing to step up to the plate and give us some assistance and help us and be willing to step into those uncharted waters with us and tread through them, I think that's what we're all looking for in the long run. And use us to learn.
Yeah.
Use us to
Yes.
learn how to fix it.
Yes.
Sean, in one of your videos, I remember you said, I'm not making this up. This is really what's happening to me. Why did you feel it necessary to say that? Were there people accusing you of
Oh, yes. When
faking
I
it?
first came out, there was a lot of backlash. The convulsion video, it almost looked like a seizure. And that was after 5 emergency room visits that I just didn't get any help. And the only place I knew to reach out to was social media. So I did that. But the backlash was horrible. People wanting to know, is this real? Are you real? So I went online to say, this is real. This is who I am, and this is what's happening now. This is my life now. All 3 of us sit here today with no job, no income. Our medical bills are stacking up, and we still have no answers and no help. And we are, 3 months in?
You were sort of pressured, you said, by your job.
Oh,
Are you
yes.
are you receiving workman's comp since this is something that happened through your job?
No, they have not given me workman's comp. They have not done anything to help me. They haven't even reached out to check on me. Even the lady that her exact words to me were, Sean, you are one of the biggest patient care advocates that we have. How could you not take the shot and protect our residents? That came from one of our corporate ladies. And it was the truth. I am probably one of their biggest advocates. And so I took the shot.
Angelia, being in healthcare, which you have for some time, what is it like to go through a system that you work in, that you've trusted, and then not see it acting appropriately, or, a failure of the system? What's that like as someone that, for those of us that don't work in
Right,
it, I don't
right.
even know if we would know the difference, but for someone that does.
It's very disheartening. You trust the medical industry to help you, and at the end of the day, when there's no help, you just sit back and wonder why. I've given years of my life to the medical field, and there's no help. It's heartbreaking. It is, and like Sean said, the backlash, I was actually told there's an article out there that I should receive the Best Grammy Award for the best acting about that clip that you just showed. It's unbelievable what we 3 have been through. I think all of us feel like we've been failed by the healthcare.
When you were receiving the vaccinations, obviously informed consent is a huge part of medicine, especially in the United States of America. Were you warned at all that there might be side effects? And if so, what were you told about that?
I was not warned of anything. I was given a piece of paper to fill out. It wanted to know if I had any other allergies. I am anaphylactic to the flu vaccine, but I had not done that much research on the COVID vaccine. So I didn't start doing research until after my convulsions started. On one of the first pages of the Moderna website was, if you're anaphylactic to the flu vaccine, do not take the shot. But the pharmacist saw that twice on my paper, signed it off, and gave me the shot anyway. So had I probably done a little more research and known, I would have not taken it. My job is now requiring it by June 1st. They're making it mandatory.
For everyone that all of your fellow employees.
And so I feel like I am a voice for some of these people. You know, it should be our right to decide. It's our bodies. And they see me, my fellow workers, and they're scared.
And they may not have a choice. For the rest of you, or any of your coworkers reaching out, asking questions, worried about getting the vaccination?
I have a really great group of people that I work with. 5 of us went the day I went to take it, and we all took it together. The rest have not, and I don't think they are going to touch it. And they do follow up with me, stay in contact. I actually tried to go back to work one day, and I had 3 of my employees holding me down in my office, and one of them had to drive me home. So they've seen it firsthand, what's going on with my body. A lot of my physicians that I work with as well will not get the vaccine.
We believe when we go in for vaccinations, especially that the people giving the vaccines have a lot of information, have done a lot of investigation into it. Why didn't you do the investigation before? Like, what is it about a vaccination or this process that you would just do it without, as you put it, Sean, without doing an investigation?
When you go to nursing school or when you go into a healthcare field, vaccines are just part of it. I know in nursing school, we didn't go over a lot of possibility of vaccine reactions, you know, the primary one being anaphylactic shock, but then, you know, you move on to the next subject. And I know for me, I've been in healthcare since I was 17. I'm 40 years old. I've been working in healthcare for 23 years, and I've taken every vaccine that's ever been suggested. I take my flu vaccine every year. I've never had any health issues from them. And when you label something as a vaccine, especially for healthcare workers and then the common public also, you automatically assume everything's going to be fine. If I had this vaccine or that vaccine, I'll be fine, no worries. And, you know, I know you had asked a minute ago about the side effects. The informational sheet that I received basically said you may experience symptoms similar to COVID, and if you have a anaphylactic type of reaction, you need to go to an ER. It said nothing about neurological symptoms. It said nothing about you may have tremors, you may have convulsions, you may have memory fog, short-term memory loss. I mean, all that has been a battle for the 3 of us. I know the past 3 months are just a blur. A lot of times when people ask me the dates of things, I can't remember those dates. My sister's like my record keeper. I call her and ask her, well, what date did I go here? And, you know, I just think we trust. You know, we're a very trusting people, and especially in the healthcare field, we trust our doctors. We trust them to guide us in the right direction, and that's healthcare in general.
Were you aware that these vaccines are not, and at that moment had not been approved by the FDA? Were you aware that there's a difference between emergency use authorization and FDA approval?
Honestly, I had not done any research, and that's my fault. I heard it was rolling out, and I went and took it. I mean, me and Sean took our vaccine very early there was hardly any adverse reactions whenever we took ours. I took mine the first day it was rolled out in my state for healthcare workers. So I didn't do any research, and that's totally my fault. You know, I just trusted what I was told by our leadership. And I
Even
went with
had
it.
we done research, we wouldn't have come up with this
No, because,
because it wasn't
right.
out there, and still today
Mm-hmm.
isn't out there. When I first called Moderna to tell them what was going on, they had no other, they said they were unaware of anything like this. It had never happened. But in fact, we just added someone to a group of ours about a week ago, a young girl that had been involved in Moderna's clinical trial, who went into convulsions during the trial. So they were very aware. It was just hidden.
We'll get back to the rest of the interview in just a moment, but I just want to say, I want you to think in the context of what we're talking about in this show, the surveillance, right? This is what we have been arguing with every reporter from New York Times, Washington Post, Forbes, all of you out there that keep saying, you know, why is it that you don't trust this vaccine, and why are you spreading the information that you are? Because this is what happens. What we're watching is a story of what happens when you don't do a controlled safety study. Those people that enlist themselves into a safety trial know that they are taking on some unknown risks. And we're supposed to follow those people and track them to see what types of issues are going, to find out that there was a case of someone having convulsions, but no one knew about it. It's horrifying. But we have no long-term idea of what this is going to do. We're talking about a short-term injury right now that's appearing because we are turning our population into a gigantic, a worldwide experiment of a product that we've told you killed animals in animal trials, had really disastrous results. And you could go ahead if you want and assume that maybe human beings don't act just like animals, but then you see if your assumption proves out by following real human beings in a controlled group for several years. And none of that has happened. And so that's why here on the highway, when people ask, like, why are you sharing the story? We don't know what this is. They don't know what this is. Nobody knows what this is because nobody has studied this. And the tragedy of this idea of trying to imagine what is happening to them, doctors, even those that are admitting it's vaccines, like, what do you do? And I'll be honest, we're talking to functional medicine doctors right now that work with vaccine injury, and they're saying, we don't know what this is. This isn't aluminum. This isn't aborted fetal DNA or some reaction we've seen in the other vaccines. This is a brand new technology, and it is having all sorts of crazy responses in the human body. But here, when we're talking today, right now, about do you really trust your health agencies? Do you really trust Tony Fauci and the CDC, the National Institute of Health? Do we really trust safety studies that are being conducted by the industry that is going to be making the billions of dollars off of it? Do we trust a regulatory agency where the head of it, Alex Azar, was basically out there with pom-poms saying, we can't wait to rush the emergency use authorization through. We're going to take a glance at the actual science, but don't worry, we should have it out in about a week. That's not a regulatory agency saying, we're going to drill down and make sure that everything's okay here and it's kosher. The scientific method would say we're going to challenge it and really see if after challenging what we do know, what little we do know, that it's safe. But here's what's crazy, okay? I get it. Your VAERS system doesn't work, and whatever your best system or whatever you're naming some new system that's not working isn't ready yet. And now you have hundreds of millions of people being coerced by the government of the United States, our president, and every leader around the world being coerced to take this product, especially, you know, being threatened or guilted if they're in the medical industry. Okay, you got a system that captures 1%. That won't be good enough. You have a trial that didn't finish. So you would think, right? You would think when you start seeing one person put up a video on Facebook and you know they saw it, you know they're in damage control, like, whoa, what do we do? These are really horrifying videos right now of, you know, Sean there, you know, having these convulsions, having these issues, and it's not going away. And then a second one, and then a third one, and these videos are popping online. I'm asking you, I'm asking all of you skeptics out there. You're the head of the CDC. You realize that we are in a post-marketing surveillance system right now. We don't know what this vaccine is going to do. Don't you immediately reach out to those people and say, hey, we're sending the best and brightest from the NIH right now. We're going to bring you into the NIH where we have the best hospital system in the world with the most money. This is what we're concerned about. We're going to study your bodies. We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out if we can fix the vaccine so it doesn't do it to anybody else. We're going to see if we can limit the damage. All of those things were promised happens. Well, guess what? I asked them, are you working now with the NIH since they know you're reaching out to Moderna, reaching out to Pfizer? Are they bringing you in to make sure this happens and doesn't happen to anyone else? Here's the rest of this incredible interview.
In an emergency use authorization, obviously now the public are becoming a part of what we call a post-marketing surveillance study. I mean, we're looking at the population. And so as I sit here, I see three people that, if you submitted your videos forward, clearly are having very distinct, unique, yet similar reactions. So my question is our surveillance system in America working? Meaning, have you been contacted? Are you working with the CDC now, or the National Institute of Health, or the FDA? Are they investigating, talking to you, trying to understand this?
I was, we were actually talking about this when we met yesterday. I filed my VAERS report on January 27th. A week ago Monday was when I received an email from VAERS confirming that they had finally started to review it and that they needed more information. So it's almost a 3-month lapse in them responding to the reports.
Same thing with me. Pfizer, I reported it to my state health department, the FDA, the CDC, and to Pfizer. And Pfizer keeps sending me these same exact forms that are like 8 pages long. I fill them out and I send them back in. 2 weeks later, I get the same exact forms. I've done this 4 times now. I'm just waiting on my 5th form to come in so I can fill it out and send it back out again to Pfizer.
How did the three of you meet?
Social media.
Yeah.
When I went out public, Angelia contacted me and said, hey, I'm having the same thing. You know, what are you doing? I went on to tell her, you know, what people had suggested I start doing. I started heavy detox right away. Nothing was helping, but I was willing to try anything. And then Christy reached out to us after she started. We just found each other through social media, and that's how people are finding us and begging us
Yeah.
for help.
I think our group,
But we don't have any answers.
no, I think our group is up to like 37, 38 members now that are absolutely just like us. We screen them, we ask for videos, because we sure don't want anybody in this little private group that should not be there. And there is at least 37, 38 of us now. All vaccines, not just Pfizer and Moderna, it's all of them are causing the same issues.
Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca also.
All
So
4
Yes.
of them.
So it's not just viral
Yes.
vector vaccine versus mRNA.
No.
They're all.
It's all vaccines are causing these same issues.
When you must talk about it, do you try to guess at how many people may actually be out there?
Oh, I can't imagine.
No.
Our spam
yeah.
and message requests every day, it's so overwhelming that I can't even keep up.
Yeah.
To answer
reaching
people's
out.
questions.
Yeah, saying, hey, I seen your videos, we're looking for help. What treatments are you taking? My wife is like this, my sister is like this, or I'm like this. It's,
So beyond the 38 people,
oh yeah, it's a lot.
how many would you say have contacted you then?
Myself, I would say about 70.
Probably over 100.
Over 100.
Wow. What is the daily life like right now? Can you drive a car?
I haven't driven my car since January the 8th. I have my father with me as my caregiver. I couldn't travel alone. we can't function. No. I'm afraid to go out in public because of a convulsion. I have been out in public and they start and the stares are unbelievable. But it's really embarrassing, you know, and we were all full of life. We did things, we went out, you know, we weren't sit-at-home people. And now I stare at my four walls every day at my house.
What's the hardest part for you, Christy?
The hardest part for me is not being able to do what I love, which is nursing. I've spent most of my career working 40 plus hours a week, helping people and doing my best to improve other people's health. And I feel like I've lost a part of me because I can't do that right now. Probably about 2 full months out of the last 3 that I was being bathed by my family. I was being fed by my family. I was being dressed by my family. I would go to the bathroom and my sister or my husband would have to come and lift me down and back off and on the toilet. And it's humiliating to be still so young. You know, none of us are considered elderly. None of us are considered, you know, we're not at that point in our lives where we want to stop. But here we are, you know, having to depend on others to care for us when all 3 of us in some way, shape, or form in the healthcare field cared for others and did everything we could to make others' lives better. And now we're having to be in the other shoe.
Has the media, Fox News, MSNBC, NBC, or any of them reaching out to help spread the word?
I have sent my videos to all of my local news stations. I never received a response. Newsmax did reach out and they said, Grant Snitchfield said that he wanted to do a show and was getting in contact with his producers, but I have not heard from him. That's probably been about 2 weeks. They want to cover it up. They're pushing this vaccine and they don't want to see people like us. You know, they're just covering it up.
Sean, how about you?
Yes, I had one news station reach out to me. She did a story. She also did a story. I protested on our second shot day outside of my work with a shirt that said Moderna ruined my life and it could be yours, so trust your gut. And I stood out there with a sign, freezing cold, in convulsions, and protested. She came out and followed that story. Dr. Oz, they reached out to us, and as far as we knew, we were all going. And then all of a sudden that just stopped and they put a halt on it. And then the next thing we knew, they were doing a show on how you should get the vaccine. But they're not telling the true story. If they were to say, if you get this vaccine and you have an adverse reaction, you're on your own. You probably are going to lose your job. Your medical bills are going to pile up. You're responsible for them. There's no help for you. They probably would change their mind and not get the vaccine. But it's all being kept quiet.
The only injury it seems that we're aware of in this country right now is obviously the blood clots being discussed with Johnson & Johnson. What we see is this discussion, well, that is a very small group of people and it's still better than, you know, catching the virus. Do you feel like, I mean, you work in the medical industry. Is it okay to compartmentalize injury and say, well, based on the numbers, these are small numbers, that's acceptable given the risk of the illness? When you see that discussion, how does that make you feel?
I feel like our lives are just as important as the people that got COVID. I get emotional sometimes, I'm sorry. It's just so unfair. You know, I feel like they don't want to see people like us. You know, I do know over 100 healthcare workers that have taken the vaccine and are absolutely fine.
Yes.
But what about us? You know, what about us that are not fine? We've lost everything. So I don't even know how to respond to that.
How about the media that you see pushing this, pushing children now? We're moving towards, and yet they won't tell your story. That lack of balance to how this is being approached, how does it make you feel?
It makes me angry. I physically and emotionally am just worn out from it. You know, I can't even sit and watch the news anymore. And to hear that they might be doing this to children, what if a child gets this? You know, this is going to affect their life for the rest, forever. It makes me angry. It does.
What is your feeling about the media right now around these vaccines and the push for the vaccine?
We're being shut down.
It's a cover-up.
Facebook is shutting us down, putting us in Facebook jail. I mean, I'm on my last warning before they deactivate my Facebook.
Not only not being heard, but being censored. All you're doing is
Yes.
putting your story out there, telling
Yes.
your story, which is what social media, it seems like, was supposed to be there. If the media is not going to do it, you should at least be able to show your videos, tell your stories, yet you're actually being censored by...
Right. How can they fact check and say that our stories are false or misleading until they live our lives every day? You know, I actually reached out to PolitiFacts. They said my story was misleading and false because they tried to reach out to me while I was laying in the hospital, and they actually emailed my work email. Well, I was not thinking about work at all. So after I got out of the hospital, I reached out to this reporter, and I was completely shot down. He didn't want to hear. I said, hey, I have the proof. Here's your proof. Here's my medical records. Here's my vaccine. I wanted to try and clear my name, and no one will even listen.
I've blocked over 500 fact checkers on Facebook, and every day more pops up in my block list. You know, you have to hunt for them. You can't, you go to your search and you search fact check or fact block, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and they literally, their job is to go through Facebook and find things that they personally think are fake and flag it. And I mean, I have reposted my videos so many times. I've had people reach out and say, hey, I can't find your video anymore. It's saying it's unavailable content.
And now, when you imagine, when you see the President of the United States now, I mean, there's no difference. I mean, Donald Trump, warp speed with this vaccine. We really cut these safety trials short so that people like you could get the vaccination. But now we hear President Biden saying he's excited. He thinks he can get past 100 million shots to 200 million within the first 100 days. When you think of 200 million people, or everyone in this country being given this vaccine right now, what runs through your mind?
Scary.
Yeah, my dad brought up a good point the other night. He said, you know, when a country goes to war, the soldiers know that there's going to be casualties of war. And they're saying is no soldier is left behind. Well, I feel like we were all soldiers, and we took one for the country, and we are completely being left behind. There's just nothing for us.
No.
I can't even imagine the casualties of this vaccine. They're coming. They're here. They're already here. If you look up the Veris site, you'll see them. And it's just going to continue. Just because we had these reactions so early, how do you not know that a year down the road, someone else is going to be just like us? You don't, because it's untreated territory. They just don't know.
So now I think if online you would be referred to as anti-vaxxers.
Absolutely, but
that's
we are
what people say.
non-anti-vaxxers.
What does it make you feel about that term?
There's just no sense in putting a label on us. If we were, we would never have went and took this vaccine. That was not FDA approved yet.
Right.
The difference between anti-vaxxers and pro-vaxxers, we're really neither at this point. We're informed consent-ers.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, for us, it's not about it's freedom of choice. Your doctor wouldn't ask you to go in and have heart surgery without giving you all the facts, and your doctor wouldn't ask you to go have an amputation without him telling you exactly what your risks are and then weighing risk versus benefits. So as an American people, we have the right to know the risks versus the benefits and to make an informed decision. That's only fair. That's the background of our healthcare system, is risks versus benefits. You choose, you get to choose that. Now we're being put in situations, where that's no longer a choice. You're feeling pressure to do something without all the facts. That's not fair. That's not fair.
What sort of catapulted me out of CBS and work on the Doctor's Television Show was an investigation I did into parents of vaccine injured children, a lot of them autism, other neurological disorders. And they always said to me, I am not anti-vaccine. You would never meet someone more pro-vaccine than I am until I watched my child injured by a vaccine. There's a lot of attitude towards those parents, by healthcare professionals, by nurses, by doctors. Does it make you think about those stories? They're out there. Now that you're seeing that happening to you, how does that affect your perspective of what you believe to be true about vaccine injury before this happened to you?
It's totally changed my outlook as a healthcare giver. I think as healthcare workers, we were often like, that's irresponsible, or they're 1 in a million. But now that, it's kind of the tables have turned, we can see the 1 in a million. It has definitely changed
Well, I think we none thought we would be part of that percentage that would be affected. I took all my vaccines. I took the flu shot every year, but I can guarantee you one thing, I will never take another vaccine. Not after what has happened to me.
So because of this one vaccine, it's changed your
I will
perspective
never
of,
take another vaccine.
is that true for the
Absolutely.
The two of
It
you
has
also?
changed our life. And I want to say I would think differently if we weren't just stuck on the back burner and left.
Yeah.
But we're stuck on the back burner and we're being left. And so, yeah, I would not risk my life for another.
very simply, did you believe vaccine injury was real just
Yes.
before this happened?
I actually have a friend whose daughter was paralyzed from her waist down by the flu vaccine 3 years ago. She got transverse myelitis. So I know it's real. I know I was very aware, but I just didn't think I would be one of the statistics.
How about for you?
Same.
Same. You know it's
I
real.
know it's real. I've seen it personally in healthcare, but didn't ever think I would be part of that minority or that group.
Don't ever say it can't happen to you.
Is there a taboo about talking about injury amongst your coworkers? Is it ever discussed? If you see it happen to somebody, does everybody sort of sit down and talk about it, or what is the energy like around that?
I can answer that because my friend that has the daughter that was paralyzed actually worked with me. But there were already people after seeing this child go through what she went through. No way. They refused the flu vaccine. They're refusing the COVID vaccine. So there was already talk within my facility about, I'm not getting vaccinated. Only because we have all been there and witnessed what had happened to this child. And yet, I took my lunch break and I drove my car and I got vaccinated.
For that very reason, though, there are probably people in your industry saying, why don't you just be quiet? You're going to put all of these people at risk by telling your story. It's such a rare event. And just like you admitted, seeing an injury means it's going to scare people away from the vaccine program. What do you say to people that are angry with you that you are going to scare people away from the vaccine program by sharing your story?
The lowest percentage of survival rate for an actual COVID infection is 99.5 for people in higher age groups. It goes up from 99.5
Survival rate.
survival rates all the way up to the high 99.8, 99.9 the younger the age group. Why are we vaccinating for something that has such a high survival rate? I understand there's been a lot of death, and I understand there's been a lot of heartache, and I'm not downplaying that by any means. But as a healthcare worker, I have never seen us vaccinate for something with a 99.5% survival
Were you aware
rate.
that was the percentage before you got it yourself?
No.
No. You listen to the media, you know, the big media, and I just listened. I listened to my leaders of this country.
And
I
what
just
was
listened.
your perspective? Like before you got the vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
if someone asked you, what is the percentage of death from COVID? What would
I
you
would
have
just
said?
say it's a lot. Have you seen the news? You know, that's the way I looked at it. Have you seen the news? I never did any research.
There's about 2,000, last I checked, 2,700 or so reported deaths to VAERS. Do you believe, I mean, we know that it's underreported. Do you believe that that is an underreported number?
Yes, I begged the hospital when I was there to report to VAERS. It was never reported.
They never did it.
No, they never did it.
It was left up to us.
Yes.
My work didn't report it. No hospital, my physicians didn't report it. It was 100% left
Yeah.
up to us to do all the reporting.
Let me ask you this. In all of your time in medicine, are you aware of any of your coworkers reporting to VAERS for an injury?
No.
My friend did with her daughter. She
For her own
reported.
daughter?
Yes. Yes.
Their Harvard Medical School did a study of VAERS. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, paid for by the CDC, and it determined that less than 1% the total amount of vaccine injuries are actually being reported to VAERS. Do you feel like that's close to accurate?
If it's less than 1% being reported, absolutely.
You think that's about where it's at?
Yeah.
Medical doctors won't even acknowledge that this is what's going on with us. So why in the world would they get on a website or call somebody and say, hey, I think this is happening because of the injection?
Wow.
But then how many of us three actually knew there was a VAERS before we got our symptoms?
None of
No.
us.
I had
None
never heard of
us.
VAERS before. Even being in healthcare for as long as I have been, I wasn't familiar with what VAERS was. I didn't even know there was a place to report vaccine injuries. I assumed as a healthcare worker it went to the CDC or the FDA or, like the National Institute of Health, but once we got injured and we all started getting together, we literally made a list that we share with everyone who talks to us. You need to report to here, you need to report to here, and when someone new comes into our group, that's one of the first things we tell them. Be sure to report on VAERS, contact the NIH, contact the CDC, contact your local health department and let them know. There's just this huge long list. Contact the vaccine company, for me, Moderna, and Sean, Moderna, and then Angelia was Pfizer. We've been playing this ball game trying to figure out what steps do you take, where do we go, how do we do it, and we've kind of got a baseline now to help others, but I as a healthcare worker had never heard of VAERS before I suffered these symptoms.
Does that seem, benefit of hindsight, outrageous to you that the one major reporting system we have,
Nope.
you were not taught about it?
Right.
What do you hope we achieve here?
I hope we achieve the right to our own bodies, the right to choose whether we take this shot or not to take the shot. I'm not out here to tell anybody not to take the shot because there has been no reactions to a lot of people. But I believe that we should have the right to say yes or no to the shot because, like I said, if this happens, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Unless you find others.
Yeah.
And luckily we found each other. If we didn't, I feel, have PTSD before We most certainly have it now.
Absolutely.
This has been very tragic, traumatic experience for all of us and everyone that we continue to add to our group every day, just begging
Yeah.
us for any help we can give them.
Just out of curiosity, is it all women? Is this
That is a good question, because that is something I wanted to talk about actually, is
Yeah.
that 90% of these vaccine injuries are women.
We've had
There are very
Two men.
few
yeah,
men.
2 men.
We had
so far.
an elderly gentleman, and I've had a couple of younger gentlemen reach out, and I believe we
We
have,
have a
couple
20-year-old
in our
group.
group.
Well, it's the mom in our group.
yeah,
Yep.
but most are women.
one of the biggest things that is frustrating for us is that in the nonprofit I work with is to try and get more transparency in science, to get more data collection. It feels like they hide from the data, whereas if we could put all the data, if we could get every single person that's having, tremors or going through these issues, we're all under this impression before something like this happens that we've got the best science in the world. We're the home of Microsoft. We're the home of Apple. I mean, certainly we can just take this data, we can throw it in the computer. We've got computer learning and just start saying, look at these women. And what do you think about the fact that these companies are going to make billions of dollars? As they're saying Pfizer, Moderna will make somewhere around $35 billion this year. When we turn on the television, huge ad campaign right now. Most of it's, we're all in this together. Get your vaccine. We're all in this together.
We're not.
What about us that has had adverse reactions after the injection? We have nothing but a stack of bills just piling up.
Insurance isn't taking care of
Insurance
it.
isn't covering
No.
it.
No. Why won't they do the same for us that they did for all of these COVID patients? You get put in the hospital for COVID, we're taking care of your bill completely. What about us soldiers, as I call us, that took one for the team? Instead of being in debt up to our eyeballs with medical bills, why can't they help us? Instead of denying our claims. It's just not right.
Not working,
No.
no workman's comp,
No income.
no unemployment.
Do you feel like there's a group of people that should get the vaccine and a group that maybe shouldn't? Do you feel like is there any group that you think might be a good idea?
I don't think I don't think we can go there on that kind of level. I think, do I think kids should get it? That's kind of scary. Do I think the extreme elderly should get it? That's still kind of scary, even though they're the most at-risk population. But one of the first things I said after I started having the tremors was, it is a right to choose, but we need to be made aware of what we're choosing, whether that be to be vaccinated or not to be vaccinated, but what those risks are. And I think that goes for all age groups. If, my children are grown, but if my kids were 5 and they were telling me that my child had to be vaccinated and that it was mandated for her to go to kindergarten or for him to go to kindergarten, I would probably homeschool them, because I wouldn't want to force that on anyone. I think that's my biggest issue. We've all three been advised that we cannot get the second vaccine. It's too risky for us. So if we want to fly to the Bahamas someday when we're feeling better, are we going to be restricted to fly there? What if we want to go to Paris? Are we going to be restricted because we were the minority that couldn't get the second and be totally immune? And I do that for a reason.
And not only that, our spouses, they're not going to take this vaccine. They've seen what we've been through. It's unfair.
And what about the promises that are being made to people? I know my employer offered people money.
Yes.
If you get the vaccine, we're going to give you money. A gentleman shared a story where his company wasn't offering money, but was offering extra PTO time if they take the shot. I know one of my son's friends are in high school where I live, and their teacher offered them extra credit points if they go get the shot. Why are we being offered all these extra things for this vaccine?
Dr. Oz has millions of people watching. He could really get this story out. What do you want to say to him and his producers that seem to have run away from this story?
Why? Why run from something that's truth and needs to be heard?
We were all excited about Dr. Oz. We were. Because we're like, somebody in the medical field is going to help us. And nothing. It's fear. They don't want to run the story because of fear. I believe it's fear of the leadership and Fauci.
Should we trust our news?
No.
Should people trust their doctors right now with this vaccine?
As soon as they hear it, they put their brakes on.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the doctor.
I think all three of us, at some point in the emergency rooms we were visited, were rushed in. What is going on with you? The second they heard we had the Moderna, it was like the brakes were put on and we were discharged.
So it's a willful ignorance.
I could even imagine, as me being a nurse, you know, had I been on the other spectrum, had I been the nurse taking care of Angeli in the hospital, you know, I think about that and I think, you know, because I look at myself and I'm like, nothing makes sense. What we're going through from a nursing standpoint, it just seems almost out there, outrageous, you know. Could it be a side effect? You know, could it be something that's going to wear off over time? We don't know. We don't know. We're in uncharted waters. So I think in the healthcare industry right now, they just don't know what to do.
To have the system let you down the way it has must just be so incredibly shocking.
And it's not just us.
heartbreaking.
I mean, it's the hundreds of other reaching out. Our doctors have basically shut the door in our face.
They're all saying the same thing.
That's
They're all
why they're
saying the same
finding
thing.
us, because there's no help out there. I had a girl from Australia reach out to me that is going through the same thing, and she started Googling shaken after COVID vaccine, and my name popped up, literally on Google. So she reached out to me. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And then you think Google will probably try to shut that down. Instagram, Facebook. I mean, these are things that are happening. These
yes.
groups, as I've seen these
Yeah.
injury groups, they're being taken down by
Yeah.
Facebook. I want to thank the three of you for being so honest. I know this is difficult. You've come to tell your story at, I think, some great risk. So you need to be honored for that, and I really pray that your voices are heard and that more people in my industry actually start telling your story, because it's the only way we can truly make a better product, to evolve these vaccines for those that believe in them. Politicians are being told by pharma and their health committees people should have no option to opt out of vaccinations. What do you want our politicians to know?
No one has the right to tell me or anyone else what we can or cannot do to our bodies. Don't shut us down. Let America be what America's supposed to be.
Right.
That freedom is, how many people have died for our freedom? Don't take that from us. Nobody deserves that.
It's happening right in front of your eyes. I mean, we're pleading, we're begging and pleading. We had no idea what we were signing.
Were you aware that there was no liability prior to taking the vaccine?
I was.
Yeah.
The informed consent that I signed that we talked about earlier was, it did talk about the symptoms that you may have and the anaphylactic reaction, said nothing about neurological symptoms, but I did read it and I I knew that it was a emergency use authorization and that I would not be able to hold the maker accountable.
You're aware that even without the emergency use authorization, none of the vaccines being given to children, they're liability protected also. I mean, there is no liability when it comes to vaccinations.
Absolutely. You're correct.
Do you think that needs to change?
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
And in all actuality, if it's such a small percentage of people that have issues, what would it hurt for them to be liable for the small percentage that are having issues?
Exactly.
If it's 1 in a million, seems like if you're making tens of billions, you could probably afford that lawsuit.
Right.
They knew, or that would never have been put in that clause. They knew.
You decide whether you're going to take a drug or not. And we see all of the side effects, even in the commercials, all the side effects are there. Our doctor's telling us the side effects. As soon as you have a side effect, they take you off that drug. To have a product that we're told only works when everybody takes it, that has no liability, drugs have liability. I mean, do you feel like this could be a perfect storm?
Yes.
And not only that, what's going to happen to everybody 10 years down the road? What kind of autoimmune diseases or neurological diseases are going to show up because our DNA is being altered? It's scary times. You don't know what's going to happen.
Do you think if someone like you had spoken to you beforehand, you would have listened to them?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Honestly, don't know.
If you had seen videos,
I think if more than one had, absolutely. But I also, being in healthcare for as long as I was, and being such an advocate for healthcare and for the system, I think I would have had a difficult time accepting that.
We have a group that we refer to, and one of the ladies in our group, I had a conversation with her the other day, and she started crying because she's just like us now. And she said, honestly, I have to tell you this. I saw y'all's videos. And she just said, man, there has to be something else wrong with these ladies. They had to have some kind of underlying condition. And she went and took her
did it.
vaccine.
Their
And
family members have.
yeah, and she's just like us now. And she said, I just want to apologize to you because I didn't believe what was going on with y'all.
I mean, are you asking yourself, if it wouldn't have affected me, what do we have to do?
It's us against the world right now. Nobody else wants to speak up. None of the national, NBC, ABC, none of those places want to speak to us. So the more people and the more places like the High Wire that can speak out for us and share our stories, the more that people that do have the symptoms will know they're not alone.
Yes.
So what is your mission?
All we have is a voice. We've lost everything else. We just want to be heard.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to help you with that mission. So I want to thank you for your grace, for your courage, and keep us posted, okay? Any way we can help.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
I want to make sure, as we sort of close out this show, that there was one part of this story that we didn't get into, which is all three of our guests, Angelia, Christy, and Sean, are now involved in an experimental procedure or therapy that's being tried, and it's having a lot of success for them. As you can see, a lot of the tremors have really been brought down. In fact, some of them weren't having any tremors at all before they got on the plane. They knew traveling might sort of re-inspire some of that in them, but they really wanted to get their story out. We'd love to tell that part of the story, but because this is a trial that's ongoing right now, it is experimental, and they don't want to draw focus on the person that's really risking a lot to try and see if it works for their condition. It appears to be working, so we hope to report on that in the future, the success of treatment. So for those of you that maybe are experiencing that, or you're one of the hundreds or maybe thousands that are out there seeing this story and saying, that's happening with me, I want to say that there does appear to be hope on the horizon. That's very important. I also want to point out that Angelia, Christy, and Sean, they all have their own GoFundMe pages that are helping pay for these treatments and things that they're doing. So there's Help Sean with her treatments and bills. That's her GoFundMe. Help Christy pay for medical expenses. There's her GoFundMe. And then there's Help people who have been injured by the vaccine. Of course, that's Angelia's GoFundMe. So if you want to get involved and that's something you want to express, go ahead and do that. If you like that clip, then be sure to check out our live broadcast of The High Wire every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can watch it on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, and Twitter. We'll see you there.